Hey, thank you so much. Welcome to Build Week and Watch. It's a new year, and it's our first time back since the last year ended. I'm curious, has anything of any significance happened since we last joined each other? Let's think for a moment. Let's see. Did anything change? Oh, there you go. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. The government shut down. Oh my God, really? But the only thing that I actually care about is that Green Book and Bohemian Rhapsody won Best Movie at the Golden Globes. What the hell was that shit? Joining me right now for our first show of 2019, we have Leigh Blickley, HuffPost senior reporter, and Chris Rosen, editor-in-chief of TV Guide. Give it up for these two.
Hey, another stirring round
great.
of applause.
Stirring round of applause. Thank you so much, everybody. First up, we're going to discuss a little-known TV show making its third try at success. It is HBO's True Detective. First season was good. Depending on who you ask. Second season was a massive flop. Third season, let's talk about it. Let's look at the trailer.
After another one of those crazy...
Will and Julie. I can't find them anywhere.
That's when it all started with the town. It's panic.
I'm writing about the investigation now.
It's as much about us as anything.
I think you use people.
Like we're all stories to you.
I'm not gonna stop, Wayne.
Oh, I guess it's a change that fine.
It's like a thing staring right at us.
Oh, I can't shake
I got that feeling myself. No, it's just a case when I caught it.
So I remember the first season of True Detective being this massive phenomenon. It was really one of the last sort of cultural zeitgeist TV shows, I think, where it felt like everybody was talking about it, no matter what demographic they were. And I remember thinking, why isn't this just a movie? This is 7 or 8 hours of something that could just be Kiss the Girls. This is a trashy pulp movie from the 90s. And I feel the same way about this as I've gotten into it. Chris, I know you love it.
Well, I didn't love the first season either, but I like this because I feel like this is much more of a straightforward, like Kiss the Girls 90s type thriller. The mystery is a lot less supernatural. If you remember from the first season of True Detective, you had a lot more of the Matthew McConaughey, like tearing up tin cans or like beer cans and like making like, philosophical musings about, Earth and life. There's a lot less of that. In this one, it's much more just like sort of a mystery and much more of a character study of Mahershala Ali, who plays Wayne Hayes, the detective. Takes place across 3 timelines. I don't know. I like it a lot. The first season felt very pretentious. I think the first season caught fire, too, because it was one of the first shows that was, like, notably an auteurist stamp, right? Because Cary Fukunaga directed, I think, all of the episodes, right? So that was like a...
It was one of the first, not one of the first anthology series, but one of the first kind of like, this cast will only be together for these 7 or 8 episodes, and that's it.
And it was still like a novelty that you had like Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey or 2 giant movie stars on like an HBO show. Now that is really, it was that kind of like, it did create almost that kind of genre then, right? So now... We've seen that over and over again. We saw that on even Cary Fukunaga's Netflix show at Emma Stone and Jonah Hill, right? Maniac. And it was like a limited thing. And like you're like, oh, this is just like stock now. So that's why I feel like this season kind of like completely ignores that the second season even existed, even just stylistically in every which way. And is going back to literally the first season where it's like, here are 2 cops, here's some creepy ass dolls and some crazy like Southern Gothic type stuff and missing kids and maybe some bigger conspiracy around the institutions of America that are corrupt. So it feels very much like that first season, but I like it. I don't know. Like, did you like it too? What do you?
Well, I must be pretentious because I love the first season. But you're so right. It did kick off like this limited series starring big names. We have Big Little Lies. We just had Sharp Objects. The new
Big Little Lies no longer limited series, though. We can pull that out of the category.
Of course, and even Sharp Objects, they're talking about possibly a season 2.
Great.
But this reminds me it's sort of like a Sharp Objects because it takes place in the Ozarks, like Ozark as well. It just feels more procedural to me, the new True Detective. It's really, it's good, but it doesn't feel like the first, as groundbreaking as the first, shall I say. But I love the first because I love all those metaphors and and Russ Cole just being so moody and dramatic.
Does metaphors mean anything, though?
No, but you can pretend like they do.
And the memes were great.
Yeah, they were.
Time is a flat circle.
And they were just
bunch of
great
other
together.
crap.
I think that's what sparked the whole thing, as Matthew and Woody they were such good buddy cops, shall you say.
Yeah, I will say, as much as I love Mahershala Ali as an actor, and I like Stephen Dorff as an actor, I don't get the same amount of chemistry between the two of them at all.
You don't, but I actually think, and you'll see it in later. So this weekend, the first 2 episodes premiere. I think they do back to back, and HBO sent out the first 5 to critics. As it goes later, you kind of understand why they don't have chemistry because they're not friends. And I think Mahershala Ali being a black man in the Ozarks in 1980, and Stephen Dorff being a white, reformed redneck, basically, their relationship kind of is at odds, and they do peel that back a little bit as the series goes forward, which I think is super interesting. I mean, Stephen Dorff is great. I like him, but it is the Mahershala Ali show. That's why he's on the poster. You wouldn't even know Stephen Dorff was in it, really,
like
if
he's
you
in the
weren't.
back.
Yeah, you wouldn't even know he's even doing it. It's just like, here's Mahershala Ali. He's playing an old man. The makeup looks good. I think he looks like really does look like an old man.
I would say its depiction of the South feels less not that the first season felt authentic, but a number of the performances in these sort of Southern Gothic characters, feel very much like actors putting costumes on and playing a kind of a silly theater part.
Well, some of them are like really pushing the accent too, and then others
maybe
like
Gummer a little
yes.
bit.
Like you're like, okay, that's enough. But it's Mahershala. I mean, he can do no wrong. It's like the era of Mahershala.
Well, he can walk. He's beautiful. He has this insane presence. He can walk on screen, and you'll watch for
The
an
old
hour.
man makeup though distracted me a bit. I felt like I was watching like Mandy Moore on This Is Us. I was
I
very
thought
much
it was
like
better than This Is Us. That it did remind me a lot of This Is Us.
because you know what Mahershala looks like, so you're just he's just wearing so much makeup. So I find myself being like, wow, those crow's feet look great, instead of actually watching the show.
I mean, I think his performance is actually incredible because he really does believably play a man at 3 different ages. So he's supposed to be like 35 in the beginning. So the show starts in like 1980. 2 kids go missing. By the end of the first episode, you'll see how that kind of plays out. You're not going to be surprised by any of this. I think what happens, it's pretty, kind of like not very difficult to imagine what happens. But yeah, he's playing like a 35-year-old guy. He comes back from Vietnam. Then we go to 1990, and he's playing a 45-year-old guy who is like been at a desk job for basically 10 years since the case, began. And there's another break in the case. And then he's playing like, a 70-year-old man, I guess, in 2015. They make a point to say 2015. I'll be curious to see if that has any kind of cultural payoff or anything. Because like, why wouldn't it just be today, right? Like you could just say present day, but they do say 2015 pointedly. And he's just got dementia, and he's very old, and it's like he's a shell of what he was, and you really do get the different layers. I just find his performance fascinating, and it's like the old man stuff is incredibly tragic, especially as it goes on. I don't know how many of you guys got to watch, but I banged through all of the 5 that they sent, and by the last one, it's like really sad. Like it's like he is definitely doing stuff here that I think we'll be talking about him at the Emmys probably and all those different things next year, because it's like this is going to be like a performance I think that stands up. Whether or not people like the show, I mean, the response has been pretty good. Most critics have been like, it's good. It's like it was the first season. It's definitely a step up from the terrible second season.
The second season has its defenders.
Are you one of them? I feel like you would be.
I'm not.
I'm shocked you're not.
I'm not a defender, but I didn't think it was as terrible as everyone made it out to be. I think it was nothing like the first, and I think people were expecting it to be so much more.
It was just narratively a disaster.
Metaphor. Yeah.
That was the big problem with
But
the
the
second
performances
season.
were pretty good. But yeah, it wasn't anything like the first. But I'm not going to say it's the worst thing I've ever watched.
No, I wouldn't say that at all. I thought there were some great scenes, some great action sequences. There's that shootout in like the 5th or 6th episode that was directed by Friedkin. That was really cool. But yeah, it was a mess. One of my favorite character actors is in this season as well, Scoot McNairy.
I was going to bring him up. He's so good.
Take it from me.
I just love when he pops up in these shows. I think he was in *Halt and Catch Fire*.
Oh, he was. Yeah.
He's so good in this, and he's not as like in your face as say Mammy Gummer is with his.
Very in your face.
Yes, it's a lot.
She really is.
Yeah.
She plays the mother of the kids who go missing, and her husband is Scoot McNairy. And they're estranged.
I'm Meryl Streep's daughter.
Right. She actually sounds
Pay
like Meryl
attention to
Streep
me.
a lot in it too. I think I can hear like the Meryl Streep-isms coming in. Scoot McNairy's great. I feel like he's getting like the John Hawkes parts now that John Hawkes probably has aged out of them slightly. So he's just here with his mustache and like greasy hair and working on cars and stuff. It is a lot of like, this is a show with like a lot of rusted out bikes and like just spinning wheels and stuff. We're just like, what is this? But
And a gray palette. It's a mostly gray palette.
Yeah. I mean, it was not, so Jeremy, how do you say his last name? Saulnier directed the first 2 episodes and then got into scheduling conflicts with Nick Pizzolatto, who is the creator of the show, and left. And then
I believe other directors have gotten into scheduling conflicts.
Yes, I think yeah. Just weird how that happens around Nick. And then I think it's David Sackham or something. It directed like the rest of it. I might be blanking on his name. And then Nick Pizzolatto directed 2 episodes himself. So the way it looks is kind of just like set by Jeremy, but it also feels very much indicative of like what Cary Fukunaga did in the first season. It's actually less showy. There aren't a lot of them. If you remember that first season, one of the other things that was a real standout was that very long take. That was like a big talking point about the season. There's a scene like that sort of later on, but it's not nearly as showy. And I think this show is just much more straightforward. Like, here's a procedural.
I think going by Saulnier, though, he's a very straightforward. I think he's an incredible director, but he's an incredibly straightforward director, which is kind of his power. He's rarely the kind of director who's like, look at this oneer that I'm going to do for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, look at me set up this sequence that's really tense and beautiful, but a lot of that's based off of the writing. And the writing of the 2 episodes that he directs don't really have those sequences. Yeah.
No. I'm also, this season is interesting too because David Milch co-wrote one of the episodes. He obviously created Deadwood and has like a very keen ear for just a lot of like very masculine dialogue. And in that one episode he wrote, I think it's the 4th one, it's very apparent that he wrote it, but I feel like he might have had a hand in a lot of, there is a lot of like very...
He has his hand in a lot of HBO shows. He's sort of like one of their... go-to on-call writers, and he has to. It's his job at HBO a lot of times to mentor young showrunners as they're coming up. He's just sort of someone on call there.
So it feels like that too.
Well, especially this show, I'm sure HBO was like, the first season was great. Nick came back and gave us a crappy second season, so we need someone to go in there and make sure he's like. Which he said himself,
Nick,
he wanted
we have
to.
someone that we want to introduce to you. This is David.
And then he's like, no. But he makes it much more straightforward. It's so much easier to follow than the first season, which is actually kind of nice. Because let's face it, like my parents don't want to be at home and then call me and be like, "What just happened on True Detective?" I have no idea. They just want to know what's happening.
I got those calls in my answers. I was like, I don't know. I stopped watching it.
My parents always call me like, "Did you watch it? What was it about?" I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, this one is very easy to follow, I think. I'll be curious to see how it wraps up because I think that was another thing about True Detective is I know you were a bigger fan than maybe me, but like people did not love the finale, if I remember correctly.
It was the worst episode, which sucks, but...
And it's like, we'll see how this one wraps up. I mean, they've kind of... The mystery is pretty straightforward, but there are a lot of ways it could go. I'm not actually sure who or what happened here. Like, even after watching the 5 episodes, I have some slight theories, but I'm like... It could go in a lot of different directions. We'll see what the payoff is. The one thing I think that's a little interesting is that you'll see he has dementia in the present or 2015 era and time, but Nick Pizzolatto has said that he is not an unreliable narrator, which I think is actually maybe a missed opportunity because there is a lot of memento in those scenes in the early going because he's like recording his own.
You don't know if he's telling the truth,
right?
Or
You don't know what he's
correctly.
saying, right? Like he's actually in the first episode, you see Hayes, Mahershala Ali's character, like listening to a tape recording that he had done the day before to catch himself up on like what was going on in his life, which I think is a cool conceit, right? Because it's like, wow, I can't even remember yesterday. I need to rely on this person on the tape recorder telling me what it is. That is full memento stuff.
It's like 50 First Dates there too, Chris.
Yeah, it is.
You guys know who the most unreliable narrator is, right?
Nick Pizzolatto?
Life itself.
Oh, I've seen that.
We got to move on. This past Wednesday, the final season of You're the Worst premiered on FXX. The series has been nothing if not consistently smart, funny, and oddly heartfelt. As is expected, the actual mental illnesses and debilitating neuroses of its characters are creating a strange will they or won't they. Let's take a look at the trailer.
You've become this stable dude all of a sudden.
Stable?
Let's Coyote Ugly this bitch!
I don't think you're like me. Nice! We have the best love story. Because ours is ugly and uncomfortable. That's why you feel lucky.
Don't look now, but I think we might be turning into grown-ups.
This is one of those great shows that whenever I catch it, I love it. Whenever I have to do an interview and I have to watch like 5 episodes of it to sort of educate myself for that interview, I love it. I'm kind of sad to see it go, even though I don't keep up with it as much as FXX would probably like me to keep up with it. Leigh, you love the show, right?
Yeah, because it is one of those shows that you can kind of tune into at any moment and still be entertained because the acting is so great and it's funny. This first episode, which aired on Wednesday night, was an interesting twist. It kind of like kicks off in a sort of old Blockbuster-esque store where he's working on a VHS and they're kind of explaining their love story through the past through other actors. So I was like, am I watching You're the Worst? Like, what show is this? Am I on the right channel? And then all of a sudden you realize they're kind of retelling their love story with other people and then they kind of bounce back to their reality. But this whole show is about their relationship and how they're on one season, they're off the next. And this season is about, are they going to get married or are they not going to get married?
Well, they created a really crazy will they or won't they with this, basically taking that cliche and turning it upside down and exploiting it by having 2 really damaged, broken people who love each other but may not ever be able to stay together because they're just too broken and damaged for real commitment. Yeah.
And that's always an interesting thing to watch, especially nowadays. Comedy shows The Good Place is great, but I sometimes find it hard to find a show that I really enjoy and laugh at. And this is one of those shows that I find myself taken by not only the narrative, but the comedy elements of it as well. Do you watch it, Chris?
Yeah, I've dipped in and out. I did not catch up with this week, but I like it too. It's really great. I love the chemistry of the 2 leads. They have incredibly good chemistry, and I'd love to see what they're going to do next. Like, I feel like Aya Cash especially should be in a lot more stuff. I have not really seen her in a lot more stuff, but I'm very excited now that this show's over. Maybe we'll have more time.
She's a wonderful part of Wolf of Wall Street, even though that was a few years ago.
She does have a wonderful part in Wolf of Wall Street.
She's the assistant.
And she's really fun in
Vulgar.
that. Yeah. Great casting there. But no, I'm excited. I like that show a lot too.
Yeah, and this show is one of the few shows that I think gets right having unlikable characters be likable at times without making it too obvious. There was that period of time, and I think specifically when this show came out, where it felt like every comedy was like, it has to be about the worst people. Yeah. Like, every comedy felt like it had to be about really bad people who were just difficult to watch, and only a few showrunners could really nail that. That would be like Jody Hill and Danny McBride and maybe like a couple and like It's Always Sunny. And this was some sort of weird mixture of a very sweet show where the characters could be really good to each other and then also were awful. And it was one of the few to actually nail it, I think. Yeah.
And that's a big element of it too. And I think that's why people watch it. I'm sad to see it go, but I'm surprised that it's made it to 5 seasons because it is one of those shows that I wonder how many people actually tune in week by week to watch it, or is it one of those that you just turn the TV on and you're like, what is the show? Oh, I like it.
I thought it was one of FXX's more successful comedies. Yeah, I mean, it lasted 5 seasons, so I would think so, yeah.
We caught up with it on Hulu, myself, which is great. It's a good streaming show, I would say. So there you go.
All right, let's jump to the next show. In the 90s, we witnessed the birth of all types of technology that disrupted society as we knew it. The Walkman, Palm Pilots, car phones, and of course, the internet. And in 2015, we saw Adam McKay's The Big Short break all sorts of narrative rules prestige dramas don't usually do. Now, Nat Geo's new miniseries, Valley of the Boom, brings those 2 things together, for better or worse. Roll the trailer.
Why don't we have a price?
Refresh your page.
$71 a share.
It's the biggest IPO since Microsoft.
Congratulations. It also makes us a target.
This is the beginning of what they call the browser wars.
I'm going to bring in a couple of experts.
Netscape changed the game.
We were Microsoft's mercy.
They were deathbed competitors.
We are running $1 billion company.
You've also got Microsoft bringing down your neck.
Prepare to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Okay, so I am a Steve Zahn stan.
Yeah.
I love Steve Zahn no matter what he does. I find him endearing and watchable, and I wish he was in everything. I really do. This is a tough one.
Yeah, it's as you saw in the trailer there, it is a documentary, but with reenactments and like narrative.
The reenactments break the fourth wall and talk to the camera.
Yeah, so that's rough. I would pick one or the other. That would be my note. That would have been my note. Just
Also,
like, what if one?
You don't know what you're watching. You're like, oh wait, there's Ariana Huffington who executive produced the show, and then you see a bunch of people from Silicon Valley at the start of the internet, and they're talking about their lives, and then it cuts to like Lamorne Morris, and I'm like, wait, what? What is this?
I would disagree with you in the sense that, and this is kind of how I felt about Vice. I always knew what I was watching, and I wish there was a little more abstract versions of these ideas coming at me. I wish it wasn't so clearly told to me. I wish it wasn't like, we're gonna break the fourth wall now, and here is a joke that I'm telling you as I break the fourth wall about the wall behind me. And you're like, I got it. Just keep going. And I think I have to say, it's time to put a moratorium on breaking the fourth wall. Yeah. It's over. You don't do it unless you are Saved by the Bell or Ferris Bueller. Like, that's it. It's bad. It's just a bad thing to do.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, remember they used to say that about narration, and then like you could do it well though. I still like the fourth wall breaking, but not in this at all. I just didn't think it worked.
I couldn't really make it that far, to be honest. I think I made it a half hour in, and I was like, I'm done.
I was just like, it's just the way I just it definitely owes a lot to The Big Short, and also a lot to Michael Moore. It feels like, I don't know. It just is like, it is very much in line with that. But I just kept thinking like, wow, I really want to watch The Social Network, or just do this as The Social Network, right? Like it make like Valley of the Boom as like, that kind of movie or
There
show.
were so many moments where I was watching it where I was like, no, just let them do the scene. Just tell me, just show me what you want to tell me. But they would cut back to an interview where the people would be telling you what you're supposed to glean from the actors, or the actors would be performing what they've just told you, or the actors would stop in the middle of the scene and tell you what the scene could have just shown you via the actors performing with each other. It was so frustrating.
I mean, it is very frustrating. I'm just like, I don't know how they got all, like, Bradley Whitford is in it. It does feel often like, the other thing, reenactments to me are very difficult. It reminds me of like being in school and watching like, some kind of like class where you're going to see a reenactment, or, when you start a new job and you get like HR videos that show you reenactments of things. And that's what those scenes really feel like.
But this doesn't
with
need
real
to be
actors.
reenactments.
I know, but that's what it is.
If you just removed the interviews, you wouldn't
have a
them as
show.
reenactments.
Yeah. It's also on National Geographic, which is like, what?
Well, they've been trying to do, I think they did Genius, right?
Yeah,
With,
which was pretty successful.
Yeah.
But this is not like Genius. No.
Did either of you watch Genius?
I watched the first season.
It wasn't
okay,
bad.
I thought.
It's not as bad as, I don't want to call
The first season of Genius was like, do you think Albert Einstein's cool? Well, what if he had sex? Is he cool now? And it's like, no, relativity was cool enough, guys. That's fine. I don't need to know that he was a philanderer.
I also think this show too, like, it's only been 25 years since the start of the. I just don't think there's enough interest in that yet. Like maybe 40 years from now, I'd want to go back and look at the start of the internet. But we're still like very present in the internet age, where it's just I don't
never
need
not be present in the internet age.
Well, I'm hoping so for my daughter. We won't be present in the internet age.
It reminded me too of. Do you remember Alex Winter directed a documentary about Napster? That was I was like, I'd rather watch that also. If we're looking at like the early start of like what this show is going to tell you is like how the internet started or whatever. I'm like, that's cool. Like I like that idea, but I'm like, it just does, the execution is not there. I
think what this show is trying to do and what ends up coming out of it makes things like and they're already great movies, but makes something like The Big Short or like Wolf of Wall Street look like absolute masterpieces. And, as hard as to do as they probably were, like I think some people watch those two movies and I think, oh, that's just how you do it. We'll just have them talk to the camera. It's that easy. And it's like, no, it's really, really hard to make that work. And only these two movies really, I think in the history of movies and Goodfellas made it work.
But even
Saved by the Bell, like you said, very successful.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Saved by the Bell. Maybe watch that.
Yeah. All right, switching gears a little bit. You're probably wondering why we didn't talk about any new movies. Well, in the movie world, January is known to be the dumping ground for the worst movies of the year. Movies like I, Frankenstein, The Upside, Replicas, Dirty Grandpa, Mordecai, Uwe Ball films, Meet the Spartans, real gems. But every now and then, some good ones make it through. And we're going to talk about some of our favorite January releases, which we definitely didn't just rely on other published lists for, but remembered on our own, right, guys?
Yeah, I definitely didn't Google it.
Yeah, I didn't Google it. Leigh, let's start with you. What do you have? What's your January release?
Well, me and Chris were actually talking backstage too about when we just discovered She's All That came out in January, which was a good one. But I don't think I went to the theater to see that. So
Go to the theater to see mine either. I don't think. Yeah.
But I did go to the theater to see Paddington 2. And Paddington, might I add. Both came out in January. But last year, Paddington 2...
Wait, was it a December 25th release and then came out, or was it just January?
No, it was January.
Wow.
Yeah. Has anyone here seen Paddington, the movies? Oh my God, it's so good. And you would think like, oh, it's an animated bear. No. They're all like, Paddington. Have you guys seen Paddington?
I actually
Paddington
did
2?
not see Paddington 2, but I feel like that is a film Twitter favorite. Everyone loved it last year.
Let me tell you, too, it got some BAFTA nominations last year. Hugh Grant is in it, Paddington 2. Sally Hawkins, who had a big year last year with Shape of Water. It was just one of those movies that I went to, I went to a press screening and I was like, I'm going to go see Paddington 2. Why not? No one wants to cover it. And I was crying by the end of it. It was so good. The animation's great. The acting in it is great. And it's just a heartfelt story. I really enjoyed it.
Everybody has told me it's a flawless movie. Tonally, it's just
script's
flawless.
great. Hugh Grant is so good in it. Hugh Bonneville's in it.
Nominated for an Oscar for it.
Should have.
He still could. Didn't get nominated yet.
That's a shit show, and anything could get nominated.
Paddington should host.
Yeah.
Let Paddington host.
Except Mordecai. I'm very happy that didn't get nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump into mine. We'll come to you after because I hate to say I think Chris has the best one out of the three.
I win.
Mine is Black Hat, the Michael Mann film starring the older Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth. How can you forget?
Best Chris or like second best Chris?
He's my best Chris.
Sexual. I go Chris Pine, who when he walked out in the Golden Globes, I went, okay, yeah, very good looking man.
I do like Chris Messina too. He's like a Chris that not many people talk about.
Bleached blonde hair. At the Globes,
now he does.
right?
He looked good.
He's getting ready for the Black Hat remake, I guess.
So Black Hat is a Michael Mann film from 2000. I don't remember. And Chris Hemsworth plays a hacker who's released from prison and has to hack into Chinese. I don't know. It's clearly a movie that was made for the U.S. and Chinese market. It's co-produced by Chinese co-producers. It has a sort of a Chinese cast in it as well. Numerous scenes don't make any sense. They were clearly cut to hell. It's still about 2.5 hours long, 2 hours and 45 minutes. Incredible locations, beautifully shot. If you like Michael Mann and the way he makes movies, you can watch about an hour of it and change and really enjoy it. Anything more than that is kind of tough.
So did you make it through the 2 hours and 45 minutes?
I've watched it a couple times.
Wow.
Yeah.
You like it that much?
I do. Background. It's pretty.
I love that Michael Mann, late stage Michael Mann, has just really turned into the skid on like this in Miami Vice and just like, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to do these weird, moody things. And if you're worried about narrative, like, just don't worry about it. It's fine.
And that's what I like about Black Hat. It's like, give me the money. I'm going to go to all these crazy locations all over the world and just shoot as much footage as possible. When you're watching these different locations, there are angles from every possible direction, but not in that Michael Bay way, where it's just like throw a bunch of cameras up and then cut it together. In a way where he's actually using his eye and trying to capture beautiful footage. And that's fascinating. The movie makes no sense. It literally makes no sense.
Is this his last big studio or last movie? Has he released something since then? I don't think so.
No, he did. He did the horse show before this movie, right?
Luck with David Milch, who we mentioned earlier on HBO.
And then the horses died and it got canceled.
Got canceled because the PETA, I think.
The horses got canceled and so the show got
David
canceled.
Milch.
Not great.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if he's really made anything after Black Hat.
This was so good. He just was like, I got to go out on top.
Yeah.
Not the case, really.
Oh, okay.
Chris,
sorry.
I guess you didn't like Black Hat, huh?
I mean, really, watch Black Hat if you want to. You could also just watch Heat or like a number of the
Miami
other really
Vice on Netflix too.
Michael Mann movies. Miami Vice is great. I mean, Black Hat definitely follows in the line of Miami Vice, which is like starting to not make sense, now just not making sense anymore. Chris, take it away. You've got what I think Leigh and I have decided is the best.
So I had Varsity Blues, which is coming up on its 20th anniversary. It was released in January 1999. 1999, you're going to hear a lot about this year as like the greatest year for movies probably ever. Like there's, a bunch of movies came out that year. The Matrix and
Varsity Blues will be left out.
Varsity Blues will be left out, but it should not be. It is awesome. Just straight up great movie. For those who haven't seen it, you should definitely see it and rectify that. But it is about a high school football team. It's like the Friday Night Lights before Friday Night Lights, though. It was probably produced and written after the book Friday Night Lights, so I'm sure they heavily borrowed from that. But it does hit a lot of the beats of the Friday Night Lights story, especially the movie Friday Night Lights. James Vanderbeek plays the backup quarterback who takes
Amazing
over.
Southern accent.
Playing football for West Canaan may be the opportunity of your lifetime, but I don't want your life is like the greatest line. I don't want your life.
You got to get that pause between
This must have been like Dawson, like right around.
It was right around
Dawson,
Dawson, so
right?
he was like
Heath
ascendant,
Dawson. This was
right?
his,
Like it's like we're gonna throw James Vanderbeek in a high school football movie. The supporting cast is Paul Walker, rest in peace. He's great in it, and just a bunch of other recognizable people. Amy Smart plays like this cheerleader.
Cream scene.
Allie Larder's
Allie
in
Larder's
it.
the whipped cream. Actually, Amy
she's
Smart.
excuse me.
Allie Larder is the whipped cream cheerleader.
Amy Smart is like his good
the
girl
smart,
girlfriend.
good
Yeah.
girlfriend. Basically.
Looks like Allie Larder, right? Don't they?
Yeah, I guess so.
It's one of those like dark teen dramas that we don't get anymore.
Yeah.
Like Jawbreaker came out that year.
Definitely R-rated.
Well,
yeah.
it was like hot off of Scream, right? And Scream 2, where they were like, okay, we can make R-rated teen fare, and people in their 20s and teenagers will go see it. But Varsity Blues bombed.
Yeah, 1999 was a big boon year for that because you'll have She's All That, like Leigh mentioned, comes out later in January. That was more of a PG-13, but still like very heightened teen movie with, again, stars of the era.
Paul Walker was in that
Paul
one
Walker
too.
is in that too. And then in March, you have Cruel Intentions, which is another fave and another R-rated movie that would never exist in 2019. But there in 1999 is just hilarious. It's a teen remake of Dangerous Liaisons, and it's just so hilarious.
Are the only like R-rated teen movies that we get now basically horror movies?
Yeah, I mean, like
Happy Death Day
sure.
or whatever. You know,
Yeah.
like-
So we don't really get too many like
Teen
great
movies,
teen
yeah.
movies.
It's like Netflix now, right? So like To All the Boys I Love Before was like a great movie that was just on Netflix. But Varsity Blues is awesome. Great use of Foo Fighters. There Goes My Hero. You got Billy Bob is the overweight kid who is like always drunk. We didn't even mention John Voight plays the coach, which adds another layer now because he's such a conservative, like, mouthpiece and, figurehead. Here he's like the very evil coach who's just like busting. Yeah, he's just like busting their asses the whole time, and he gets a great comeuppance at the end. Spoiler alert, they actually throw a coup, fire him, the team fires him basically, and they coach their own way into the championship or something at the end. It's so hilarious.
I got the chills.
It's a great movie.
10 Things I Hate About You came out in 1999
It did.
too.
Really?
Yeah, 99 is like
it's a
the
banner
greatest
year.
year for teen movies. But I love Varsity Blues. I mean, I think it's just so fun.
Right.
It's great.
Should I go back and watch it? Will I
Yeah.
enjoy it now? Oh,
I think you'll enjoy it now. It's awesome. It's actually good. It's like such a cliched sports movie, but it's good.
Yeah, I liked it. I really do.
Well, guys, thanks so much for sitting down with me and talking about TV and January movies. Let's give a big round of applause for Leigh and Chris. Let's hear it.
Woo, guys, yes.
And to those people watching at home, I also hope that you liked us. Bye.